Hi everyone! It's your host Mevish and welcome back to this week's episode of Hand the Mic Over. Today I have a very special guest with me who I went to school with, and from what I know so far, she has lived in many countries all over the world. So we'll be jumping into her story today. Without further ado, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Sedra. So I'm in my mid-20s and I born and raised in Damascus, Syria. Damascus is the capital, by the way, and it's known to be the oldest inhabitant capital in the world. So rich in culture. I really loved my life there till the war started. So we had to fled to Turkey, which is a neighboring country. Around age of 16, I moved to live in Istanbul, Turkey, and I lived there for 4 years. And I finished my high school over there. Good story there is I did graduate from high school twice. Once in my language, which is Arabic, and another time in Turkish, which is the official language, of course, of Turkey. So after I did my high school and I graduated, I was happy. Got really good grades, ready to apply for a university. And then Turkish government was like, no, will not accept any kind of Syrian or Arabic certificates, high school diploma, sorry. And then we had to do it fully in Turkish. And my Turkish back then was really, really bad. I would barely read and understand a conversation. And if you ask me, how did you pass the Turkish grade 12 exam, I would say I have no clue.
Really? Just for anyone who's listening, first of all, who's not familiar with where in the world Syria and Turkey are, could you give them a general area of where on the world map these countries are?
If we're talking about continent, would be the western end of Asia, and it's the heart of the Middle East. And Syria is an Arabic country, while Turkey is Turkish and does not belong to Arab countries, and they have their own culture and language. Both countries lay around the Mediterranean Sea.
And in Syria, you speak Arabic, right?
Yes.
Is there any other languages you know that are spoken there?
We have Kurds population up north, so Kurdish is a known language to be spoken. There's a few villages who still speak very old languages, maybe the Syrian old language, which is very old. I'm not pretty sure, but yeah.
So no Turkish at all in Syria?
No.
And then in Turkey, is there anything besides Turkish?
It's also Kurdish because northern part of Syria and then southern part of Turkey, where basically the Kurds population, we share this kind of thing. We have our own language, Arabic. They have their own language, which is Turkish. Both countries, we have population that speak Kurdish. Yeah, so the northern part of Syria, we share border with Turkey. To the south, we share border with Jordan and Palestine. And to the kind of southeastern part, we share border with Lebanon. And to the east, we share border with Iraq.
So definitely the heart of the Middle East.
Yes.
Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit on your story. So you said that you were born and raised in Damascus, Syria. Would you say that you lived in more of an urbanized city, or was it more of a village or town? What was your neighborhood like?
I was in the countryside of Damascus. That was the first home I've lived in. And it was a couple of years, and then we moved to the heart of the city, looking for a larger house since our family is getting bigger, I would say. So we moved to an area called Muhajirin. If we translate the literal meaning of it, it's called immigrants. Basically, in the old days, a lot of Turkish people and Turkmens specifically and Cherkas, they used to migrate and live in this area. I also used to have a Turkish friend. She born in Damascus, Syria and everything, but her ancestors are Turkish, and once the war started, she went right away to her village in Turkey.
So you got a taste of the countryside and the city.
Exactly.
Okay. And how old were you when you moved to the city?
Maybe 8 years old.
So you were still pretty young.
Yes. So if you ask, majority of my childhood was in that small house with a large backyard. We used to play with my sisters there. That was very nice. But then we had to move to a flat kind of style in Mount Kasyun, and that mount is very well known because it's in the northern side of the city, and from our balcony we can see all the city.
So do you have any memories of what that transition was like for you from a countryside life and a house to changing to a building and being in a different part of the city?
To be honest, even a countryside, the place I was living in was kind of urbanized, so it wasn't an actual countryside, no. So it wasn't a major change for me, other than the a new place place, we had to climb a lot of stairs because obviously we live now on top of the mountain. So that was a struggle, and it was a lot of chaos, like because we had to spend few days at my grandma's house before we completely moving, and few days at my auntie's house, and yeah, so we kept moving till like my parents finalized us to move safely to the new place. So it was kind of tough period for us, but we made it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Tough, but sounds like an adventure too.
Yeah, the new house was really nice because my dad is an engineer and his dream was to design the apartment, and he designed it in the best way possible. So we had like a huge room with sofas and our own TV that was wow, mind blowing back then. It was really nice.
That's mind blowing for me right now.
It was like a huge transformation from a simple house to like luxury, kind of apartment. It was
Yeah, for
luxurious
sure.
apartment.
That sounds so amazing. So, about how many years after moving to the city did the war officially start in Syria?
So we officially moved at around like 2007 or 2006, as far as I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And the war started 2011. Yeah.
So you
So
had
like
like 5-ish years.
yes, unfortunately, when I count it, I'm like, that's it. I live in that nice place just those few years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what are your memories of Syria before the war?
Beautiful country, simple people. I would say like the best way to describe my country is simple yet beautiful. All families used to go to the countrysides of Damascus, which is full of greenery areas and farms, and we would do like family gatherings every single Friday. Friday is an official part of the weekend. Our weekend in Syria is Friday and Saturday.
Instead of Saturday and Sunday, like over here.
Yes. Yeah, we'd appreciate Thursday a lot since it's the last day of the week and it's last day of school, and then we have our weekend. So mostly all family would go have good time together on Friday. And we have the special Friday breakfast that all family like have.
Oh,
Yeah.
what does that consist of?
Mostly something called fateh hummus, which is like the chickpeas. Sometimes falafel. That was like a breakfast for us. Not like necessarily every single morning, but I would say like Syrian cuisine, like even for breakfast, we have 100 kinds of breakfast. Maybe we have something like condensed yogurt. We eat it with olives and like cheese, and then yeah.
Oh, is that labne?
Exactly.
Okay. I've seen that in the grocery stores. We actually bought it before, and it's yogurt, but it's almost like cream cheese.
Cream, exactly. It's one of my favorite things to eat during school times. So my mom would prep me like pita bread with like labne in it. It was really nice.
Wow, that does sound really nice. And you mentioned that Damascus was the first place that travelers settled in?
Damascus is the oldest inhabitant capital in the world. By this, I don't mean it's the oldest city. No, there's a lot of like, even within Syria, Aleppo is older than Damascus. It's the oldest inhabitant capital.
Okay, so there
Yeah.
must also be a lot of history.
A lot of empires came and lived in Damascus and Syria in general. From the Islamic empires, like several empires within the Islamic State, and then Roman, and yeah, a lot of like empires.
Is there like museums or like some sort of memorials over there, like showcasing the history of the city?
Yes. So one of the Damascus is very well known, like as a site, is Umayyad Mosque, which is I believe is the largest mosque in Syria, and it was built during Umayyad Empire. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Umayyad Empire.
No, actually, I'm not. If you give like a brief history of it for our listeners as well.
So after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and after like his followers like Sahaba, I'm not sure about like my English wording for this kind of like events, but after like they take over like ruling cities in general, Umayyad take over after Sahaba, and then they start to open like new cities and join them to the Islamic State. They ruled over 80 years, and their capital was Damascus back then.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
very old history. We're talking like almost 1500 years ago then.
Yes, we still have some architecture related to that period of time, and we even have like older than Umayyad time, which is related to the Roman Empire.
Okay, so Romans also occupied Syria.
Yes.
Wow.
That's
okay.
even before like Prophet Muhammad's period of time.
Oh, wow. Okay, so very, very rich and complex history of Damascus then.
Yeah, we need like a couple of hours just, discuss only history.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is super interesting, but I do want to focus on your story. And yes, history is the part before your story, but now moving on to when you were born. So you were living in Syria. You would, I'm assuming, be like a teenager around the time of the war starting.
Yes.
So what
Um,
were some changes that you started to notice as the war broke out?
So first of all, like simple stuff that we have right now in Canada or any other like normal country, we used to like miss it. Electricity. No electricity for 8 hours. So they have like 8 hours shut off and then it's back again for 2 hours, then another 8 hours. So it depending on like what area you're living in. And thankfully, like I used to live in a good kind of area, but still we were suffering a lot. For example, even buying a bread from like the bakery would cause a problem and you have to line for a couple of hours in order to get few like pita breads. So it was really hard. Like the living conditions was getting harder and harder. The sad part is just the Syrian people ask for freedom and they want to change the ruling regime and simply they refuse. So because of that, million of Syrian had to fled the country. And I don't want to get into politics, but yeah, it was very hard.
Remind me, who was the war between?
If I want to like correctly describe it to like people listening, it wasn't a war like Western media saying. It wasn't like civilian war. We call it revolution.
Okay.
It was like Syrian people's revolution against the regime. Few countries supported the regime and then it continues like year and year, 13 years. And just last month, finally, we got our freedom and our revolution was successful.
Yes, I heard about that, and it was very, very big news, not just for Syria, but I think all around the world.
It was a big deal. Like the moment we were like witnessing the news, like we were just like hoping that something good would happen, but would never imagine the fall of Assad's regime. Like never, not even like 20 years from now, like never, seriously. Even my dad would say that you might witness it, but I don't think I'll be able to witness it. Can you imagine that? But it was such a miracle. Like we witnessed the news and our eyes full of tears.
Yeah, for sure. And do you know why the Western media was calling it a war? Because I never heard a revolution.
Oh, because like it's very complicated, but I would say like the way they think that half of the Syrian people want Assad's regime, other part of the Syrian people do not, and they were thinking that we're fighting against each other. To describe it for people who like watch TV or news, this is the easiest way to describe it. It's like civilian war. Well, it's not civilian war. 90% of Syrian people want this regime to be out of this country because our country compared to other countries, there's not much happening for like the people of Syria. My dad like disappeared for 6 months in their detainee center. We didn't know anything about him and my dad did not do anything. And a lot of people who like experience this would just disappear forever. My dad just was lucky. We were lucky to have him back. So imagine every single family has experienced this in Syria and lost their family member. It could be a son, daughter, father, even grandpa. We suffered a lot from this regime and I would say we would never accept to describe whatever happened to us as like a civilian war. So they placed some kind of like barrier between like common streets that like connect city to city and part of the city to another part of the city, and they would ask people for their IDs. And according to your ID, you don't know what's your future gonna be like. So if you're born in this side of the country, in this city, you will be taken right away. You don't do anything, but you just belong to this city and you're born in that city, you will be taken because like majority of this city was against the regime. So they would take randomly, and of course they would have like people gatherings and protesting. During protests at the few like months or few 2 years, maybe 2 years, yeah, of the revolution, 2011 and 2012, people would protest, and during protesting, like they would come, they would kill them, like and hit them, yeah, take them away if they're still alive. So it's very dark. Whatever happened to us, I don't think any other country has experienced what Syrian people experienced. And I'm not biased by saying this, or I'm pretty sure if people have the chance to look into what Assad's done to our country, they would know 100% what I'm talking about.
It sounds very different from what the Western media told us growing up.
Well, never trust Western media.
For you, at that point in life as a teenager, things are already changing. I mean, you're growing up, you're starting to figure out more about your environment, about yourself. To be thrown into something something as unstable as war during that time. How did you navigate yourself growing up and watching this happen to your country and your life around you?
To be honest, back then, I lost even like that passion about thinking about my future, how it's gonna be like look like, or like me as a person, how I'm developing from this year to another year. Because now, after like years of me in this life, every single month you are growing up. Your personality is growing from a year to year. I'm a different person. But that time was frozen for me, so I wouldn't even think about like myself, my future, and I was very invested in like watching news and how people are protesting. I like how people are like going like very strong against this brutal regime, I would say. And it really hurt me when I see like from news they count how many people have died today in Syria, like 230, and the other day is a good day, it's like 65% died. So if you like watching this type of news, do you think you'll be able to care about your future, what you're gonna do about yourself? Like, to be honest, time froze back then.
That makes sense.
The neighborhood I lived in general was like very near to the like president palace and where he lived in. So we didn't have any threat to our lives like other part of like Syria. So we won't have bombs dropping. It's kind of the opposite, since like we live up on the mountain. We would see like all corners of like Damascus, we would see the aircraft like dropping bombs and stuff, and we would see the smoke. And when we use zoom in the cameras, we would see like the fallen apart buildings. So we would witness everything, but thankfully nothing happened in my like place. But that was like a very like, you would feel so tired because you see like other people are suffering and you cannot do anything to help them.
Yeah. What exactly were the regime pushing for that the people did not agree with?
Before even like the revolution, the regime did not do anything good for Syrian people, and they were killing anyone who dared to talk a word about the president. Even now, after the revolution has successfully ended and the regime like now is a refugee in Russia, we would question ourselves. You did that for what? No, for real, you did that for what? We see here in Canada and a lot of like Western countries, people who talk about like a politician in a bad way. They don't like the way they lead the country. That's totally fine. But the way they think, it's totally different. It's totally inhuman. And the president himself was not a Muslim, so he wouldn't even care about like the majority population of Syria, which is like a majority of Muslim people. Half of the population, I would say like thousands of people were disappeared. We don't know anything about those people yet. Even after like we open all prisons in Syria, we could not find those people. So we always question ourselves why he did that, and we never get to have the answer.
It's just not making sense. Why? Why did this start, and why did it go
Trust
on
me,
for so long?
we don't know either. Why? Now we see the damage in like largest cities across Syria, and they are like completely demolished. And when I say completely demolished, like all buildings on the ground. Why he did that, no one knows.
People, he just left.
Exactly. So people who before his fall, we were like, okay, he did that to those like cities because he does not want people who fled out of Syria to come back, because who fled away from Syria are people mostly who are against him. So when they come back, they won't find a place to like settle in. So basically he wants us outside of Syria and to forget about our country. That's my point of view.
Yeah, that's very strange. I mean, from what I've learned growing up, the job of a president or prime minister or whoever is to lead your country, not drive people out of it and then leave yourself too. I don't think that the media here, and I know you said already, like, don't trust Western media, but I really don't think anyone covered this story properly, because the first time we really heard about the Syrian crisis was the Syrian refugee crisis in Canada, which happened around the time of 2015, 2016.
Yeah. And even like when we say what we have been like through during our last 3 years in Syria, a lot of my friends would like be completely shocked. So I was like, this is just part of the story. And trust me, my story is way better than other Syrian people. I was just lucky to live in such a safe place. But like my friends, for example, who I get to know them in Turkey, they would live like under bombs and like underground secret rooms or something like that.
Okay, so they were directly in the war zone.
Exactly.
Or not war zone, revolution zone.
It's war run by the regime against its people. So
Yeah. Around how old were you when you moved from Syria to Turkey?
around 2014, when my dad, like, thankfully, this is the happiest moment in my life, when he was out of the prison, we had to leave the country ASAP.
Okay. What was that time like when he was taken away, and approximately how long was he gone?
So he was gone for 6 months. We did not know anything about him. And at that time, if anyone was taken by, like, the police or the people of regime, we 100% know that person will be dying soon. The amount of torture they, like, do, and the bad condition, like terrible condition of, like, the prisons in general, lead, like, a lot of people, like, to, like, die, unfortunately. So we were very stressed, and my dad is our only supporter. We were all young girls with my mom, so it was very tough. We would pray all day long. We read Qurans, and we'd ask, like, we can pay you money. But my dad, like, the night before he was taken, he told us, if I was missing one day, do not even pay anything, because they will take the money and you will, like, gain nothing. I won't be out. I don't know how he actually had this idea of at midnight the night before he was gone. So we were just praying and hoping, and we were, like, have this faithful thoughts that my dad 100% will be back. But when, we did not know. So Ramadan came, we were hoping that during Eid he will be out. Did not. Another Eid came by, we were hoping he will be out. He did not. So it was around, like, 6 months in total. And then thankfully he was out. It was like a miracle.
Oh my god. That sounds very scary to be going through.
Like, it's kind of, to be honest, like a trauma that I experienced it. But I want to reconfirm that we were also lucky.
Yeah, definitely. So when did you see him for the first time after that?
So I remember at exactly December 11, 2013. That date I will never ever, like, forget this date. It was like another birthday for my dad. Every year we celebrate even more than his actual birthday. He was out, and he lost like 20 kilograms. At first we could not recognize him, but thankfully he went to, like, hospitals. He got, like, the treatment he needed. And yeah, after, like, a couple of months, we finished our last year at school, and we fled to Turkey because my dad could not even sleep at night just from the nightmare. So we decided we go for a safer place.
Did he ever open up about what happened during those 6 months?
He would tell us, like, very, very few things, but even, like, those few things is like, oh my god, like, I don't want to imagine that whatever he's saying happened to him actually. And even the worst part, he did not even, like, till today told us about whatever happened to him.
Wow.
It was really, like, a bad time for him and for us as a family in general.
Yeah. Sounds like everyone in your family was very, very strong to be able to stay so hopeful during that time and then support each other through such difficult times to the point where you then moved as a whole to a whole different country. Having that connection is probably the most valuable thing that I'm hearing out of your whole story right now.
I agree. Like every single member of this family appreciate family in general, and it's our top priority.
Definitely. So when you finished your school year and you moved to Turkey, what were some differences that you noticed in your life before and in Turkey?
The moment you travel to a new country and you start to settle in, you are, like, hopeful, you are excited. Just the excitement in general is there, but at the same time you have fear from the unknown. Especially for me, I did not know the language, and that's, like, really was so annoying. And for me, I was really, like, stuck at learning new, like, languages. I don't like it. Like, even back in Syria, we were forced to, like, learn French and English, and I would hate French so much, and I suck at it. And the only language that just stuck in my brain was English. I know my English is not the best, but still, I would prefer over, like, other languages to learn. So Turkish was an obstacle for me, but I was amazed by the beauty of the city. Istanbul is such a beautiful city. I would recommend everyone to visit it. It's like a must to visit.
Is there any similarities between Turkish and English or Turkish and Arabic that helped you pick up on it faster?
As far as I know, a lot of, like, words in thousands are Arabic in Turkish like language. So that was actually good. For example, like the simplest one, merhaba is hello in Arabic. They say it like merhaba in Turkish. There are a lot of words like that, which is Arabic in origin, but it's in Turkish. But it's still like we weren't settled in because of my dad could not find a job. So every like once in a while, he would say we need to go back to Syria again. So that's why I did not have the motivation to learn the language. And even like the school that I went to, it was like run by Syrian people.
Oh.
Yeah, so I would learn in Arabic this curriculum. Syrian people in Turkey, all of them are against the regime. So it's very edited, but the main parts are very exact same of the like curriculum back home.
So at what point did you realize that now you were going to stay in Turkey?
Actually, I never felt like I'm gonna live in Turkey. Not even once. I was thinking that I'm gonna be living in this country because our financial situation there was really bad. We would live a very simple life that I've never experienced before. But thinking about it now, we spent like tough times in Turkey too, but at least we were safe and together as a family, of course. But now, like thinking about my life in Turkey, it was like very nice. Despite like everything, I would say it was like part of me as a person. I would plan to visit Turkey again.
Okay. And what kind of neighborhood did you live in Turkey then? Was it like a city like in Damascus? Was it back to the countryside?
Istanbul is the kind of the largest economic city for Turkey. It's similar to Toronto and Ottawa. It's kind of like Ankara is the capital of Turkey, but Istanbul is the most popular. You know what I mean? So we lived in there, and it was like very like whatever we lived in Damascus. There were a lot of like markets. People, we would share with them, like Turkish people, we share a lot of common like cultural things, food. So it wasn't like completely different like Syrian who fled, for example, to Germany or like Netherlands. I would say that's a complete 180-degree change.
You were able to find a Syrian community in Turkey?
Not quite. We did not live in like a neighborhood where like a lot of Syrian involved. We would commute like 2 hours to get to that school. One of our friends rented us like an apartment, and we lived there for like the whole 4 years that we were in Turkey. We did not even try to move because we did not have the ability to do so. But during school and activities, I experienced going to Turkish Scott Federal or something. Like it was a huge event, and we would camp for a week, and we would walk like for 5 hours, appreciating like soldiers' souls or something like that in a war place. It was like a lot of activities run by schools in general. Being part of Scots was very nice to experience, and Scots only for girls. You would take off your hijab because all staff are like women, and it was really nice to experience like having only girl Scots and camping in general.
That does sound really nice.
Yeah, it was really like one of like my favorite memories from Turkey.
Was your school an all-girls school as well?
No, because like number of students did not allow to have, for example, my class, we were like 10 girls and 3 boys.
Oh.
So it's very small. A lot of Syrian would let their kids go to Turkish school. And now I'm like, as a family, we regret going to Turkish school so we can pick up the language faster and have this language in our like resume now.
Yeah, no, of course. But I'm sure because you lived in that country, and I mean, you say you also wrote a grade 12 level exam in Turkish, you can probably say like limited working proficiency.
Yeah, exactly. I would like understand general idea from a conversation. I would like speak very few sentences. There were a lot of Turkish customers who visit me, like the store I work at, for example, and they would assume I'm Turkish because of the way I put my hijab, and then they start speaking in Turkish, and I would communicate with them perfectly fine.
When I first met you, I also thought that you were Turkish. And I think it's definitely the hijab style, because I know like other girls who've also tied the square hijab especially. There's like a very distinct way that is traditional Turkish.
Yeah, so there were a lot of fortunate events happened to us because of we're Syrian in Turkey. So we have to look similar to Turkish people so we don't face bad stuff.
Oh, was there discrimination there? That's all for this week's episode of Hand the Mic Over. Tune in next week to hear part 2, the finale of our 2-part series. As always, be sure to check us out on Instagram at Hand the Mic Over to see pictures from today's episode, and you can find our other episodes on YouTube and Spotify at Hand the Mic Over.